try to understand the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution through two landmark judgments passed by the Supreme Court of United States. Number one is the District of Columbia versus Heller case. The citation is 554 US 570-2008, and this is a summary. The case is about whether the individual have the right to own guns for the personal use like self-defense, even if they are not the part of the militia. Background of this case is that the District of the Columbia had strict gun laws that banned most people from owning handguns and required other firearms to be kept unloaded and locked away. A man named Richard Heller, a security guard, wanted to keep a handgun at home for self-defense, but DC's laws prevented him from doing so. Heller sued, arguing that these laws violated his Second Amendment rights. Supreme Court decision was that the Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the Heller, stating that the Second Amendment protects an individual rights to own gun for lawful purposes, such as self-defense in the home. The court struck down the DC's laws, saying that they were too restrictive and violated this right. The key points over there in this judgment is individual rights. The Second Amendment protects an individual rights to possess firearms, not just a collective right related to the militia services. Second is the self-defense. The right to own a gun for self-defense, especially at home, is a fundamental part of the Second Amendment. Thirdly, the regulations. While individuals have the rights to own guns, this right is not unlimited. Reasonable regulations are still allowed. In fact, the ruling was significant because it clarified that the Second Amendment protects personal gun ownership for self-defense, shaping future gun laws and regulations in the United States. And second judgment was that it's the McDonald versus City of Chicago 561 US 742 2010. The summary of this case is the case is about whether the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms as recognized in District Columbia versus Heller, the judgment which we have just discussed here, applies to state and the local governments through 14th Amendment. Background of this case, the city of Chicago had laws that effectively banned most residents from owning handguns. And the Otis McDonald's, Chicago resident, wanted to own a handgun for self-defense but was prevented by these laws. McDonald sued, arguing that the Second Amendment should protect his right to own a gun even against the state and the local laws. Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the McDonald, stating that the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms is fully applicable to the states through the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. This means that the state and the local government could not infringe upon these rights. The key point, incorporation doctrine. The decision applies the Second Amendment rights to the states using the 14th Amendment. This process is known as the incorporation. Second is the right to self-defense. The ruling reinforced that the right to keep and bear arms for self-defense is a fundamental right protected from infringement by state and the local governments. Precedent. The decisions built on the precedent set in the District of Columbia versus Heller, expanding the protection of the gun rights beyond federal jurisdictions to include state and the local governments. Impact. The ruling was significant because it ensured that the Second Amendment protection rights against the gun restrictions applied nationwide, limiting the ability of state and the local governments to enforce strict gun and the control measures. Significance. A summary of the difference. Heller addressed the Second Amendment within the federal jurisdiction, that is the Washington, D.C., whereas McDonald extended those rights to apply to all states and the local governments. Incorporation. Heller did not involve the incorporation of the Second Amendment against the states, while McDonald explicitly used 14th Amendment to incorporate the Second Amendment, ensuring that state and the local gun control laws could not violate this right. Thanks for watching the video.